Don't forget, you can reach the latest episode of Potomac Watch anytime. Just ask your smart speaker, Play the Opinion Potomac Watch Podcast. That is, Play the Opinion Potomac Watch Podcast.
From the opinion pages of the Wall Street Journal, this is Potomac Watch.
Let's turn to the Democrats here on Potomac Watch. I'm with Kate Batchelder-Odell and Kim Strassel, and we're talking about vice presidential choices. And Kamala Harris gets to make a choice quickly. She has to make it relatively quickly because the Democrats want to have a nominating vote that is virtual before the convention. So the date people are talking about is August 7th, which would be a week from Wednesday. And there's several names that are being bandied about. All of them happen to be white males, if you can believe it or not. Mark Kelly, Arizona Senator, Josh Shapiro, Pennsylvania Governor, Tim Walz, Minnesota Governor, Andy Beshear, Kentucky Governor, Roy Cooper, North Carolina Governor. What do all those states have in common? Well, maybe they're in play politically this year. And then Pete Buttigieg, the transportation secretary and the favorite of what you would call the Ann Arbor Democrats, the progressive liberals who like their politicians very fluent and glib, a la Barack Obama. But hey, Kim, why no women and minorities here?
Well, look, boy, that's the question I get asked.
Well, I mean, it's something. I mean, obviously, Kamala Harris is a black woman, but are they really ruling out another woman? Why not Gretchen Whitmer?
Yeah, it looks like they are. And it's funny. Gretchen Whitmer has been running to take herself out of the running. She actually said today that she is not undergoing a traditional vetting process, therefore does not believe herself to be a candidate. This seems to be an acknowledgement by the Democratic Party that some ticket balance would be good. It just so happens, by the way, that a lot of those people that you are mentioning not only happen to be white men, but leaders of state governments with experience from swing states as well, too. So I think this is an acknowledgement that maybe having two women on a ticket, especially a woman who the country has seen as vice president, but hasn't seen a ton, and then another somewhat unknown woman from a state might be a step too far. They want someone who is going to provide a little bit of outreach, as it were, to other sections of the voting electorate, which, by the way, is not a stupid thing to do, to try to have a balanced ticket that is appealing to more than just the traditional Democratic base of minorities, women, etc.
Interesting. Kim, Kate, who do you think makes the most sense for Harris? The names that I hear that are at the top of the list, I think still the likeliest choices are either Mark Kelly of Arizona, astronaut, fighter pilot, has dealt with the immigration issue in Arizona, husband of Gabby Giffords, who was shot and badly injured several years ago. That choice would have some national resonance, I think, beyond Arizona because of that background. On the other hand, he's a pretty liberal voting record in the Senate, went along with nearly all of the Biden agenda. And then the other one is Josh Shapiro, popular governor of Pennsylvania. Smart, practices a kind of reasonable sounding politics, although he can be a very tough partisan too. One criticism of him, and one reason people say he might not be the choice, is that he has been very pro-Israel. And the anti-Israel wing of the Democratic Party may hold that against him. What do you think, Kate?
Well, first of all, it's remarkable that that could be a liability in today's Democratic Party, but here we are. On Mark Kelly, I think he makes a lot of sense. And one thing I'd add to your list is that in addition to having that profile of serving in the military, that at least brings some national security credibility to a campaign that she doesn't have much background. Kamala doesn't on those issues. And it is, while voters don't tend to vote on foreign policy primarily or exclusively, you do have a cratering world environment that I think voters are noticing and that she is sort of an unknown on. So something to shore her up on that front, I think, would be helpful. On the flip side, I think Democrats will be reluctant to give up that Arizona Senate seat. There are reasons why she might be wise to prefer a governor with more executive experience than current senator and a former senator bring, even if she has been vice president for 4 years. The other thing is, I think Josh Shapiro, he appears to be quite popular in Pennsylvania, but he has bucked the Democratic trend in partially, at least, on school choice. He has tried to support expanding school choice in Pennsylvania. School choice is a crucial national issue and is one that some Reform Democrats have supported COVID, it's one that matters a lot to women voters, to suburban voters, especially as the public schools are in so much upheaval after COVID. So it is an important and perhaps salient issue with voters if you're trying to persuade them. But at the same time, I think Kamala's going to have a hard time picking him because the Democratic Party continues to be completely captured by the teachers' unions. And she spoke at a teachers' unions event last week without any concern about that causing her a political problem. So I think the problem is that her most sensible choices, there are some real forces in her party that are trying to keep her from making those decisions that I think would be most effective for her and most likely to make the race a lot closer with Trump.
Yeah, it's interesting. The Shapiro choice, he has not been vetted on a national race. There's always that, as we found out with J.D. Vance. And he doesn't have national security experience, Kim. On the other hand, neither do any of these folks who are mentioned on the list. I mean, Mark Kelly has, I guess, the most, having served in the military, but that's it.
Yeah.
And these other ones, I mean, Andy Beshear, I don't think he gets you anything. They're not going to win Kentucky. He gets you a pugnacious governor who's willing to attack. Tim Walz, the same, very polarizing governor of Minnesota. Roy Cooper, he gets overridden by his legislature all the time in North Carolina. I'm not sure what that gets you either.
Well, look, I wouldn't count out Roy Cooper. He is getting a lot of talk, especially among some Democrats I chat with. And the reason why actually goes back to what Kate was saying is that whereas Josh Shapiro and Mark Kelly have annoyed certain elements of the Democratic base, whether because of school choice or support for Israel, or Mark Kelly's tepid and late embrace of the PRO Act, which is that major union legislation. There were a number of union heads. He only just endorsed it this last week, having held out from doing so for a number of years. Some union heads instantly came out and said that was disqualifying. He has now said he endorses it. But the special interests in the Democratic Party, I think, will hold a big sway here. Roy Cooper, in that way, is a little bit more acceptable to them because, as you said, yes, he was overridden continuously by his legislature, but that's because he continued to oppose even their common sense policies, for instance, on school choice. He practically stood in front of school doors and said, I'm not going to let low-income kids use educational choice. This is how much I hate it in that state. Now, he was overridden. He was a bit humiliated when it came out that his own daughter attended a very Tony private school that he'd sent to. But this is a guy who's never lost election in 40 years of statewide politics. He's kind of folksy from rural Nash County. 2020 was the only Democratic governor to win a state that Donald Trump won as well, too. The thing that I think might hurt Roy Cooper is his age. 67, he is the oldest of all of the candidates that are being vetted at the moment, and that puts him significantly older than even Kamala Harris and poses some challenges for the party going down the road of what they would do if they wanted to hold the White House for a longer period of time.
Well, but of course, if Harris wins, she's got 8 years.
That's true. Right. That is absolutely correct. Look, all of these people, I think it's more interesting. The choice is going to be fascinating. Do they do what Kate said is in the sensible thing? It would be very sensible to have someone that was a little bit of balance on the ticket, a white male, a governor from a state, and someone who at least presents themselves as more moderate than the rest of their party. Or does the base dictate this, completely blackball certain candidates because they haven't been 100% pure on certain issues, and you get another very liberal candidate running side by side with Kamala Harris? There's no one to blunt all of those claims that she is as far left as they come.
All right, Kim, you get the last word. Thank you, Kate. Thank you, Kim. Thank you all for listening. We are here every day on Potomac Watch in what has turned out to be one of the more fascinating presidential races in modern history. Thanks for listening.